Josh of VIP Insurance Professionals. Josh, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, well, let's see. We have offices in Tucson, Phoenix, and Prescott. Main offices in Tucson. We really concentrate heavily on motorcycles, classic cars, collectors, stuff like that. But we do auto, home, life, health, the 9 yards.
So everything. And most importantly, agreed value insurance policies.
Yeah, what do you know about that, James?
Well, quite a lot. That's kind of how we met. So tell us a little bit more, while I have you here, about the importance of getting, and I'm going to specifically say this again, but agreed value on any enthusiast car, whether it's your 1967 Mustang or a 2005 BMW even, it can range what you can get this insurance on, especially with car prices kind of being so high and a lot of these cars being hard to find now, even for sale.
Right, yeah. Well, most people that have collector cars, classic cars, unfortunately, they'll either run them on liability-only policies or they're not on the correct policy to begin with. They really need either agreed value policies, replacement cost policies in some cases. The most important thing to do is to make sure that if you want the correct value for the vehicle, to try and get an appraisal for it, especially if it's worth decent money. Appraisals always prevent the underwriters from having, not the underwriters, but the adjusters from having much of an argument about what you say the price is worth. And once you have agreed with the insurance company that the price is what it should be, that's usually what's paid out should there be a final claim on it.
And the beauty of working with someone like yourself is you don't just work with one company. You work from Grundy to Hagerty to State Farm, and you kind of work with us to get quotes from all of them, the kind of what's going to fit the best for the client.
Right. Well, we don't work State Farm, but we do work with Grundy, Hagerty, Chubb. Progressive has a classic car product. Kemper has a classic car product. Safeco. We work with a lot of these bigger companies that also have a classic car product, but obviously the ones that we concentrate the most on are the classic car, collector car companies, and we have quite a few that we are directly appointed with and we work with, and they're very knowledgeable about the industry. Their underwriters know the industry. They're not just sitting behind a computer somewhere looking for prices. They're involved in the auctions and they own the cars themselves, and they're very knowledgeable. So when you go to them with a belief in what your value of your vehicle is so that you can get that value out if something happens, they're usually in the market to be able to know if that's a reasonable price or not, and it's easier to get an agreement from the companies that are specifying or specializing in that than having to fight back and forth over what you believe the car's worth.
Right, yeah. And you were even, I think, saying some of these companies will even insure the tools or spare sets of wheels you may have may not just be the vehicle, but everything that goes along with that vehicle.
That's why it's also important to make sure that you're with a collector car company and not just State Farm or Allstate or one of these companies that have a collector car product, but they don't protect the collector car enthusiast the same. So you can get coverages, and some of them are standard coverages that come along with the actual policy itself, where you would be able to claim your tools if something happens to your tools. If you have a whole toolbox in your vehicle and it gets stolen, you get to claim those on your car policy. Things like spare parts for the car. If you have a quarter panel and your son falls on it and ruins it somehow, you can get money back for things like that. It also includes things like guaranteed flatbed towing. If something happens and you get
that's a must.
They will only send out a flatbed.
Perfect.
So there's things like that you can make sure are going to be protected.
And like I was saying, everything from an old classic hot rod, even like a rat rod, where someone's put the time in and they may have a $20,000 engine build into this rat rod. It may not look like on the outside, but you open that thing up and it's got a beautiful interior that was custom made for it, a blueprinted engine and such. They take all that into account and can insure it.
It's a little bit like if you go with a regular car company, they're going to give you what the value of the vehicle's worth, regardless of the actual upgrades. They don't care about that stuff. It's kind of like if you insure your ring with, let's say, your wedding ring with a regular home company, but your wife has a $12,000 wedding ring. If you don't insure her wedding ring properly, they're going to only give you what the limits are on that policy. So you need to make sure that this specialized coverage is there for you when you need it.
Yeah. Well, going into you as an auto or bike enthusiast, rather, what are you riding or driving nowadays?
Well, so I'm in the process of, I've probably be in the process of this till the day I'm dead. A 1963 and a half Galaxy 500.
Oh wow.
I've been building since I was 16, off and on, and it's still not on the road because, you know, life comes at you and kids come at you, and before you know it, you're doing other things. And so in the meantime, while I had kids and, you know, starting a business and things like that, I started to try and get smaller projects, and I sort of ended up into motorcycles because of it. And they're a lot easier to work on. They're sort of cheaper sometimes with the parts, and so you can do a lot more with one motorcycle. I could probably do 4 or 5 motorcycles for the same amount of effort that I'm putting into the Galaxy. So that's been kind of fun for me, and that's kind of taken me on that direction as well.
Yeah, and do you run or create any kind of like motorcycle riding clubs in the area?
So we've created 3 different motorcycle groups. One is called Arizona Goldwing Riders, and they're on Facebook. That's obviously geared toward the Goldwing guys and trying to get those guys organized and together. I have a Goldwing, it's one of my bikes. Another one is Tucson Sport Bikes. In Tucson, we have close to 800 members on that one. And in Prescott, we have Motorcycle Riders of Prescott, where we try to get everybody together. We organize events. We try to promote the Cars and Coffee, get bikers to come out to the Cars and Coffee as much as possible. Of course, free coffee and donuts, why not? So we are active in the community, not only with the collector car stuff, but you know, it's gearheads. You know, we all kind of think alike. So it's fun to just sort of be involved in that.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of that, you brought one of your bikes in today. Tell me a little bit more about it.
It's a 1999 Ducati Monster. It's called an M900. And this is, it was a basket case I got off of a college kid in Tucson for about $1,600. And it was a complete tear down and rebuild. Had to go through every nut and bolt on it pretty much, you know, short of actually tearing the engine down, everything else was off of it, and completely rebuilt it and kind of brought it back to life. And now it's a little bit more rider friendly than it was before. But this is kind of the bike that saved Ducati. This is sort of their entry-level sport bike. It was the first bike that was really considered a naked production sport bike without all the plastics and things of that nature. And it just kind of took off. It just became a very popular brand for it. I think they've sold over 400,000 at this point.
Oh wow, that's definitely quite a few. Yeah. Well, and Ducati, I mean, most people are going to recognize Ducati from like stuff like MotoGP racing, and that's really the heritage of, you know, of the bike.
Yeah, and they built this from other bikes, so they didn't go out and race and find what works and bring that kind of thoroughbred into this. They actually took parts that they had from other bikes to build this bike, to create this bike, although that's different now. I believe the 2021 is a totally different bike, which is kind of like, it's sort of sacrilegious now because they've gotten rid of the trellis frame now with it, and so, which was sort of iconic Ducati. And now it's more of like an aluminum frame, kind of like, you know, a Yamaha or anything else of that nature. But the newer ones now actually have MotoGP inspired stuff in it, like traction control and wheelie control and all kinds of stuff. And I think this one's pushing about 75 horsepower, and this is a 900cc. The newer ones, the Monster 1200S's, I think are about 155 horsepower.
Oh wow.
So quite a big jump.
Huge jump. Yeah. I bet insurance on those must be fun.
Yeah, well, it depends on your age. You know, 19-year-old is not going to be pretty.
Yeah.
But, you know, they're not too bad, especially because it's, you know, and that's the other benefit of the collector stuff, right, is since collector car companies, they know that you're going to take care of that car so much that your rates are so low because they know you're fanatical about it.
Right.
It's not like just some Jeep you go trashing through the desert with. These things, people, if you get mud on it, they freak out. And the insurance companies that deal with that stuff know it. And so you would think that it would be high, but with a lot of the collector stuff, it's actually quite low for the right target group.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, and speaking of MotoGP, I think you were telling me earlier, one of your motorcycle clubs here locally are going to start doing kind of like a MotoGP.
Right. So it's hard to see the MotoGP. MotoGP is a motorcycle race that occurs all over the world, primarily in Europe. They do have one series here at Laguna Seca every year, and it's pretty big. You wouldn't think it, but there's some races that, you know, 200,000 people will show up at these things. It's like NASCAR for motorcycle guys. except they do more turns. So what we're going to do here, since they usually do it in Europe and we're asleep, we're going to try and do a reviewing here. So what we're going to do is a MotoGP party, hopefully over at Sidekicks. They have a huge projector screen, and we can all sit there and eat some good food and kind of hang out and talk bikes and bring our bikes. And the weather should be turning pretty nice here. So we're going to try and do those every Sunday at noon, starting when the races start, which I believe is March 6th.
And over at Sidekick
Saloon over in Prescott
Nice.
Valley, right? Yeah.
Awesome. Wings, good drinks, and MotoGP. That's a pretty good
Bunch of pool
combination.
tables and a bunch of bikes. So
Nice.
that was fun.
Well, going back to your car enthusiasm, what kind of got you into cars? Were you always kind of a gearhead, or?
Yeah, so back in the 70s, my dad had some land out in 3 Points, which is west of Tucson. And he and his brother went out to a wrecking yard, I guess it was, on the reservation, and for about $50 a pop, purchased a bunch of cars and stuck them on his land, and they've been there ever since. So there's probably 30, 35 cars sitting out there, and he's got everything from 1957 Ranchero, 34 Plymouth pickups.
Wow.
He's got 55 Buick Roadmaster, 49 Plymouth, I think that's called a Suburban. And it's funny because, even I get people at Cars and Coffee when I talk to them about this stuff. They'll always ask me if I can get parts. If I can get parts. You talk to your dad about getting parts. No, he's a hoarder. He won't get rid of anything.
Does he have them like in a warehouse down there?
No,
or?
they're just Arizona cars.
Yeah.
They're just out there. They're all jacked up, so they're out of the dirt and stuff.
Good.
But,
Yeah.
he does have a little shop out there where we work on stuff. My 63 Galaxy is sitting out there. He's currently working on a 64 Galaxy 500 XL convertible. So it's the bucket seats, floor shift, 390, with the convertible. And he's almost got that done. But he's fixed up some cars here and there. And so I've always been in the grease since I was a kid.
Yeah. Well, and what is the Galaxy, would you say, kind of your favorite car to date, or?
No, I think I saw somewhere that it was the most collected car in the United States,
Really?
the Galaxy, just because they were everywhere. I think we have 4 or 5 of them out there. I mean, that's how popular they were. So, no, it wouldn't really be my favorite one. I think if I had a chance to go back out there again and pick a different one, I probably would have. But there's so many parts for that thing. It's easy to build.
Yeah.
And I'm all about that.
Well, going into modern cars, let's say from the 2000s up, were there any modern cars you've always had your eye on or been interested in?
No, not really. I'm kind of an old car guy.
Yeah.
I don't like the computers.
Yeah.
I like to be able to get my hands in there and work on stuff and not go, oh, this is something that the tech has to deal with.
Right.
If it's above my pay grade, I don't want it.
Yeah.
I appreciate them. I love, especially this new Corvette, this mid-engine Corvette that come out. It just blows my mind what they've been able to do with that for the price is insane. But I would be scared to death to get under that thing. I wouldn't want to touch anything on it.
Right.
Because even with the, a lot of the all-terrain stuff, you can't even really mess with tires. Like you can't. Everything has to be perfect, or you're going to get some sensor somewhere that goes off, and it's just that doesn't appeal to me.
Yeah, they're not as, I would say, wrench friendly
No,
as cars from the 90s on down.
No,
so.
you have to be a computer genius, and you have to be able to get into that thing. No thanks.
Yeah. Well, so you help host our current Cars and Coffee here in Prescott. But tell us about, this isn't your first Cars and Coffee. You went down to the ones down in Tucson, or?
Yeah, the ones at Tucson, when we were going there, they moved them since then. It was at a place called AJ's Fine Foods, which is kind of up in the Catalina foothills, and it was a lot of exotics would show up to it, just because of the nature of where it was, I guess. And great turnout, quite a bit of motorcycles, quite a bit, just everything.
Yeah.
Everything under the sun would show up, and it was a lot of fun because it can get kind of boring if you're just going to go to an exotic show. And not to talk bad about it, but they do have a Corvette show here every year, and it's nice to see Corvettes. But after you've seen a couple, you've seen them all.
Don't tell that.
Something radical. No offense, guys.
Yeah.
But it's nice to see a Corvette and a Lamborghini sitting there, along with some 1947 Frankenstein that who knows where all the parts came off of it.
Yeah.
They managed to put it together and make it look really cool. I think there's a delivery van that's been slammed that comes out there to the one out here in Prescott Valley. Sorry, I'm boring you, Chase.
No.
But it's like a delivery van that the guy's completely slammed and turned into some kind of a rod. I don't know, but it's just beautiful. I have no idea where it came from.
Yeah, I've seen quite. I think I've seen like, I believe there's even like a Hummer with like a 50 cal on it that comes to this one. Do you see some of the rat rods, and then we get the guys in Lamborghinis and the Porsches,
or a VW Rabbit will show up.
Yeah,
and that's cool.
And that's kind of the beauty, though, of Cars and Coffees. But we do kind of get everything from A to Z, from the 17-year-old enthusiast first car to his grandfather's, Ferrari for all intents and purposes.
Right.
So.
Yeah, super fun. And everybody has a story, and so it's really cool to talk to people. And that's what's really cool about, especially the classics. Is they've been around for so long. There's always a story going on there about how somebody bought it, or they were in love with that when they were a kid and were finally able to purchase it. And it's pretty neat just being able to talk to people.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think I enjoy most about Cars and Coffee, is just going up to new people and hearing what they have to say on where their car journey lets them. So.
And it's really great to get the car community together, because you never know what's going to pop in your head about maybe an issue you're having with your car. To give you an example, this Ducati I got, when I brought it up here from Tucson, I couldn't get it to run. It just wouldn't stay running. For the life of me, it was just backfiring horrible. And I couldn't figure it out. And I went through and I completely rebuilt the carburetor, and I'm shotgunning parts at it, trying to figure out what's going on with it. And we were having a Sunday morning coffee run that I had organized once. And one of the guys was sitting there, and he just looked at me and said, "What kind of gas you running?" And I said, "Well, premium." And he goes, "You need to run regular unleaded in it." And I looked at him and was like, "Why would that make that much of a difference?" Well, according to him, the premium has a higher burn, or I'm sorry, a slower burn rate than the regular unleaded. And at this altitude, you're probably not burning the fuel like you should, which is why it's backfiring. So I ran out that gas, went to the gas station, put regular fuel in it, ran great.
Yeah.
I probably spent $300 on rebuilding everything and pulling stuff out, and countless hours trying to rip my hair out and figure it out, and it was the fuel. And if I had never gone there and talked to them, I'd probably still be ripping my hair out. So it's important for us to get together, not just because it's fun, but there's so much knowledge and wisdom out there that you'll never find. I can't tell you how many hours I looked online. Nobody ever mentioned the gas, and that was it. So
simple thing.
It's important.
Yeah. Well, some Prescott questions for you. You've been here a few years now. Where is your favorite driving road, or riding road, I should say, in the area?
So for me, it depends on the bike. So I have different bikes. I have a Z1000 Ninja, which I love taking, Light Spar or down towards Jerome. Of course, you have to be really careful because it's always crawling with cops. But if I have a Goldwing, I love Skull Valley because of big, long, sweeping curves going down towards, the big drop.
Yeah.
Of course, that one I also like taking up Flagstaff. So it just sort of depends on what I'm riding.
Yeah. All right. Well, another question for you. If you had to pick any modern car, I know you don't like them, but you had your choice. Budget, within reason, of a C8 Corvette, whatever those are going for now. Are there any modern cars that really interest you?
Probably not. I mean, it'd be hard for me to go, I really want this car. I like Jeeps. I mean, I would probably go something utilitarian like that.
Yeah.
I'm not a speed freak when it comes to that, because for a fraction of the cost, I can get on my Z1000 and beat any sport car out there.
Right.
So, I mean, when you're doing 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds on a bike that you paid $1,500 for, why would you spend more? And the visceral feeling of the wind and all that stuff. So I think when I get into four wheels, I'm more utilitarian in my brain.
Right.
Because I've already got that out of my system. So I'd probably go with some Wrangler or something that I'd probably spend more on upgrades than I did for the car itself.
Well, there's so many great trails to take your Jeep or your 4Runner or anywhere out here. I mean, that's kind of the beauty of the area, is that whether you're on two wheels or four, in both types of four, I think there's great roads, great trails. There's just so much to do in Prescott here. So.
For sure, 100%. I mean, coming from Tucson, you have to drive an hour to get to the roads. Here, it's right in my backyard.
Yeah.
and it's such a blast, and everybody's super friendly out here and very helpful. So it's a good place to be a car freak out here for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Josh, thank you for your time.
You bet.
Before we end this, is there any other helpful insurance tip that you can give?
Yeah, don't speed and don't get in accidents.
There we go. That's that sounds straightforward enough. Well, thank you all for listening. Our next event will be in about a week from releasing this, which I think is going to be February 26th, if I'm correct. Hopefully I am.
And is this one going to be at the 9:30?
Yes. So I'm thinking we might actually keep 9 or 9:30, even as it gets warmer. It kind of feels like a good time, but we're make a post to the Facebook group. So if you're out there and you're on Facebook, you're watching this there. We're gonna have a poll soon, so be sure to vote for that. And until then, we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Yep.